Hello, Sioux Falls, and thanks for joining us for Planning Preview for the month of May. My name is Jason Bieber with the Planning Office at the City of Sioux Falls, and joining me today is Kurt Johnson, our Planning Commission Chairman.
Hello, Jason.
It's great to have you today, Kurt. Another cool day out there, as usual, it seems like this spring, but hopefully we'll eventually warm up. But looks like, you know, as we go through this agenda, quite a few items for May that we have coming up. So
yes, exactly, and a lot of excitement too, because I can see Sioux Falls is continuing to develop. Like on this first item, looks like we're talking about brand new land development going on out on the southeast side. Why don't you give us the latest on this one?
Yep. So this is some property just west of the New Harrisburg Achievement Academy there on 85th in Minnesota, and really it's getting some additional land south of everything that they developed, south of the Avera Center and the dollar store out there, and really south of where Veterans Parkway is going to come through. Getting that all ready, and once that street comes through there, or once people see that highway come through there, you're going to start seeing a ton of development out there.
Yeah, that's definitely true. There's just so much going on all the fringes of town. But our next item is a little unique, kind of going against that grain in the residential area that's actually moving into a historical designation. Why don't you give us some of the update on this one?
Yep, so this is a new zoning district that we created with Shape Places, and this is for some property east of McKinnon Park tennis courts. We did quite a bit of rezoning over there as a neighborhood 2 years ago. This is another property that would like to utilize the residential historic preservation designation, and what that's going to do for them is allow them to get a little bit more flexibility with their narrow lot. A lot of those lots over there are super narrow but really deep, but it also provides them with those extra protections with the historical board, and gives them a little bit more assurance that people are going to build something that's more historically accurate with that neighborhood.
Oh, excellent. And our next item is kind of going along that same line in terms of it's a developed area, but it is being kind of retasked. And why don't you tell us about this next one?
Yep, so this is east of Cliff Avenue and then kind of south of Rice back in there. It's a pretty large single family lot, so the developer is looking to actually construct a twin home on there. Just another area where maybe a single family house on this really large lot is not a good fit for the neighborhood. So if we can get a twin home on there where you sell both sides, give a couple more units in our core area is a better use for this specific lot.
Excellent. Well, our next item looks like we're transitioning away from kind of heavy industrial into something a little more conservation in nature. Why don't you tell us about this next one?
Yeah, so this is another industrial development that we've actually seen quite a bit for this specific property over the last couple of years, kind of getting it ready to start developing for industrial uses. Now as they've kind of moved forward and have gotten all of their subdivision plans approved, there's some significant drainage conservation area they need, so they're coming back now and zoning that as conservation. So that remains open and we utilize it for drainage then.
Oh, very good. Where water is always going to pond at that lowest level, and don't go try to change that. So very nice. Our next item, this is kind of exciting just in that there is so much development and plans around Minnesota Avenue all the way through town, and it looks like this is part of it.
Yeah, so this is one of these properties that's going to be fronting the Minnesota Avenue road construction project that we're starting from Russell down to 2nd Street. So this is the strip center that has the plasma place and the shopping cart on the west side. With engineering removing some of that parking on street so we can shrink Minnesota Avenue and then have wider boulevards and sidewalks to make it more walkable, they need some additional parking. So there's a couple lots to the south of this building that the owner owns, and they're looking at constructing kind of an auxiliary parking lot for that strip center.
Oh, very good. So as we think about the Minnesota corridor in general, this is just the beginning of something pretty significant, isn't that correct?
Yes, absolutely. And one of our other staff members on our future planning side is working on a corridor study for Minnesota Avenue, because once you can kind of see that finishing with it being more walkable and the medians and really putting some significant money from engineering and public works side into that street, we do really expect some redevelopment on some of those parcels. So I think over the next 4 or 5 years, we'll see quite a bit of rezoning maybe coming forward to the Planning Commission for some higher density.
That sounds really exciting. Look forward to hearing more about that. Our next item, we're kind of shifting gears out to the northwest part of town into, again, kind of new land hitting to a residential type function. Why don't you tell us about this next one off North La Mesa?
Yep, so this is kind of just south and west of the school out there and the fire station on Maple Street. And really, as you just kind of alluded to, we're getting quite a bit of development there. This is just another quarter section of single family apartments, those kind of uses, getting more residential out in that area.
No, excellent. Definitely need more and more housing there, so this is great news. Another development, it looks like in that similar area, again, agricultural to single family. Why don't you tell us about this next one here?
Yep, just south of the one we just spoke about, that's another quarter section out there that they're looking to develop with more single family, really trying to get it ready for all of those families that move out there closer to high schools. So similar kind of uses and really just getting lots more available on that northwest side.
And our next item as well, it looks like we have kind of a multi-phase development here, different densities and such. Any thoughts on this one to share with the folks at home?
It may sound like a broken record, but more of the same uses that we talked about in the last two, similar area. Just really, we've annexed and started getting so many acres out there ready to go, and that's all based on, you know, Amazon that was announced, CJ Foods, and then really the Jefferson High School. Anytime you've seen high schools come in, you see so much residential development around those high schools.
Well, that's a great segue because the last several items that we've just talked about kind of focused on residential in that area, which is around the Jefferson High School. Why don't you tell us about this next one? It looks like we're switching gears, but I think it's going to I'm seeing the picture. It's really going to be significant in this area.
So this is kind of that parcel that's just fronting Marion Road, just across from Jefferson High School. And as you kind of talked about the transition, getting all of these residential units, getting those rooftops out there, well, that's going to drive your retail, your sandwich shops, your gas stations, your offices out there. So all four of these kind of go together. And I think over the next 5 years, as people drove north on Marion Road out in this area, you saw McGovern Middle School just out in the middle of nowhere by itself, right? And in the next 5 years, it'll be completely surrounded by residential, retail, really office uses. It's one of those areas that's just going to start exploding for Sioux Falls.
Oh, that's excellent. And we'll look forward to seeing that more as it comes to fruition. On our next item here, it looks like we're moving more northeast now, Veterans Parkway and East Madison Street area. Tell us a little bit about this one.
Yep, this is another area that we're seeing a lot of development in that northeast part, just off of Veterans Parkway in the Brandon School District. This one has already kind of been zoned for a big subdivision out there. The applicant's now coming back and tweaking a couple little things. You know, as you start moving forward with your development, maybe the demand switches a little bit, or maybe you think, hey, we could use some more of this and less of this, or that kind of stuff. So really not rezoning the entire area, just kind of making some tweaks to that overall plan that they have out there in the East Prairie edition.
Now that's a great segue into this next item because I have seen several amendments, if you will, to this planned unit development plan around Lake Lorraine, and it looks like we have another one coming through. Why don't you tell us about what they're going to be doing there next?
Yep, and so this is, as we've been out to Lake Lorraine, we've seen so much different development out there, and as you go through the years, things maybe change a little bit. You get maybe a hotel where you thought you were going to get residential, or a restaurant where you thought you were going to get a hotel, or whatever the case may be. But that's part of those planned unit developments, is them updating us and kind of keeping an idea of what's going on out there. And then if it's something maybe that they're looking to put there that doesn't fit with their initial development plan, that's where we need to come back to the Planning Commission and come back in front of you and really give you our opinion. Does it still meet the intent of the pedestrian-oriented PUD? And does it still all kind of fit together? And with this specific one, we feel it does, but it still warrants coming back to kind of give you an update on that overall development out there.
Oh, that's great news, and it's just exciting to see that area fill in. Our next item, it looks like additional residential development going on the far southwest side.
Yep.
Tell us about this next one here.
Yep, so this is another residential development over there like you indicated. So this is kind of way on the southwest, south of 41st Street and east of the Ellis Road. It's kind of one of those large lots that they're looking to do some twin homes. It's already zoned correctly. It was done quite a while ago. And they had an approved preliminary plan. However, they've looked to actually change part of that and change what they're looking to do there. But overall intent is still some twin homes.
Oh, that's excellent. And speaking of planning ahead, it looks like we have a preliminary plan to talk about, again, around East 85th and South Minnesota area.
Yep, as we go through these next four, they're really preliminary subdivision plan for the rezonings that we heard a little bit earlier in our discussion. And really, as we know, and you guys know on the Planning Commission from your perspective, from staff's perspective, it's really a big deal to not only see the rezoning, but maybe see how the development's going to look and how that's all going to fit together in a specific area. So, you know, the next four items, like I said, are all preliminary plans for the Ackerson addition on 85th in Minnesota, and then those preliminary plans for all of that land that we've seen south of the McGovern and west of the McGovern Middle School up in the northwest part of town.
Sure, so I think that's a great topic just to touch on real quick maybe. Yep. When you talk about a preliminary plan, I think this is helpful in that it kind of, among other things, will eliminate surprise, if you will, as an area develops, especially with multiple layers or multiple uses coming through.
And it's been a really good discussion with items 20 through 22 because those are all connected, you know, here, here, and here. We actually are having a meeting with all those developers next week to kind of make sure all those subdivisions are going to coordinate together, the streets are going to go where they're supposed to go, and really working with all three of those property owners at the same time. It's really one of the first times we've had that many different property owners bring preliminary subdivision plans together at the same time and then try and make them fit essentially like puzzle pieces out there. So there's a little bit more coordination we need to do with them to make sure that's all going to fit together with streets, water, sewer layouts, and all that different stuff. So.
Well, very exciting,
yeah.
And just can't wait to see as that whole area comes together.
Yeah, it's going to be, like I said, it's going to be a significant change to that whole northwest part of town. And if you haven't been able to get out there yet, you know, it's crazy how much dirt is being moved and just how much it's going to change over the next couple of years. So, yeah, it's a pretty loaded agenda that you guys will have to look through and make decisions on. You know, we get to do the easy part and just write staff reports for you and give us our recommendations, but you guys do the heavy lifting and come to the meetings and hopefully everything goes well. So,
well, glad to do it, and it's all for the greater good. So thank you.
Yep. And thanks for joining us for the first half of Planning Preview. Just to give you a heads up, the meeting for the Planning Commission is on a Thursday this month on May 5th. It's moved as part of the City Council moving to Wednesday as part of the election. So the meeting will be on Thursday, May 5th. And stay tuned. After the break, we're going to be having Adam Roach from the Planning Department to discuss some zoning ordinance amendments he's proposing for 2022. Thanks, Sioux Falls.
Hello and welcome to today's Maintenance Minute. My name is Seth and I'm here with Bruce. We're housing specialists with the City of Sioux Falls. Bruce, I have an older home with a block foundation, and every single spring I seem to get water coming into my basement. How do I take care of that?
Well, there's a lot of different ways you can take a look at that. You can check to see if you've got proper slope away from your house with the grade around the outside. That's one way to fix it. Another way is to do what we've got here, to go around the inside of the foundation and put in drain tile. Come in around, they take the cement out all the way around the perimeter in here, put drain tile down, pour concrete back over the top, put a sump pit in, and then you can discharge the water outside of your home. And that should hopefully take care of any groundwater issues or water coming in from the outside.
So the drain tile collects all the water, drains it into this pit, and the pump actually pumps it outside.
Right. Yep, it's pumped to the outside. There's a hose that's connected out there that can be moved around your yard. Some people use it to try and water their trees or their plants. The biggest thing is get it as far away from your house as possible, but not out onto the street or across the sidewalks.
Great. Well, there you go, folks. If you have an issue with water in your basement, sump pump is the way to go. If you'd like to see if one of our city programs can help you out, call 888-8180 or check us out online at siouxfalls.org.
Welcome back, Sioux Falls, from the break. With us for our special topic today, we do have Adam Roach, a planner with the Planning and Development Services, to kind of talk a little bit about some of the zoning ordinance amendments that he's going to be proposing for the 2022 year. So thanks for joining us, Adam.
Thanks for having me, Jason. Yeah, so each year we get together as a team and we look at some of the challenges and the opportunities that we've had over the past season, and we tend to look at what are some administrative ordinances that we can change, and what are some of the challenges we had out in the field, or feedback that we've heard from developers, and so with that we gather a comprehensive list of changes, and I'd like to go through some of them with you today.
Yeah, great. And I think that's one of the great things about Shaped Places that we kind of touted in 2013, and then once it was approved in 2014, really that it's kind of a living document, and it's supposed to have changes over the years, and we typically try to do these at least yearly, and sometimes even more than once a year. So
absolutely, as technology evolves and as we evolve as a community, we have different needs out there, and this is a great opportunity for us to address those needs.
All right, well, let's get into some of them. Why don't you run through a couple of the important ones that we're looking to do here?
Sure. A couple months back, we had an individual who was looking at a C1 zoning district property, and at that time we did not allow residential above the first floor, and that's our lowest intensity of commercial uses, and we really didn't know why that was the case, why residential was not allowed up above. And so one of the reasons we want to change that is it makes sense. We have a housing shortage within our community, and it's a great use.
Yeah, and this is kind of gets back to that we've seen maybe in Minneapolis and some of the other bigger cities. Some of those neighborhood amenities coming back to the neighborhood coffee shops or the neighborhood grocery store, and then to really promote those, but also allow some people to live above them, and as you indicated, to get them as more dense as we can. So.
Absolutely. It's a great opportunity. It adds an element of safety and security to the neighborhood. They're great places to live, and it's similar to how we used to do things a long time ago, and so we're happy about this change and happy we could help a resident of our community have her vision come to life.
Great. Keep rolling through them for us.
So another one that's going to be important moving forward is the expansion of Veterans Parkway and how that looks on the south side of Sioux Falls. And so one thing that we think is important is the buffer adjacent to that highway is to require trees, 1 per 50 feet of frontage. That's a great way to green up the community, buffer that highway from land uses, and it also acts as a great ecosystem for our animals, our urban animals, if you will.
Yep, and I know we've talked with our office to try and keep that maybe similar to how we have done 229 previously, where if you go on the 229 corridor, there are a lot of landscaping that backs up to it. Our previous ordinance, we had that 229 design review district to really promote those trees, and that's one thing I think our office, and specifically you, because you have pushed a lot more landscaping in the last couple years, have really wanted is to add those different elements to be able to buffer that highway from some residential and commercial uses, and really try and preserve some of those corridors.
Absolutely, and it softens up the corridor for visitors that are coming through the community, and just greening up the community really makes a difference.
Yep, and I think this next one is one of the things that you've specifically worked on with your zoning ordinance amendments. Some of these core areas of the city, some first-time homebuyer houses that we see now, are the older core neighborhood houses with single stall garages. Well, as we know, we have families and a wife. Typically you have 2 cars, right? And how are you going to get those cars in a single stall garage? And how do you get the car that's in the garage out without moving the other car on the street? So I know you've proposed this next ordinance. Maybe talk a little bit about how we're trying to promote those specific single family in the core area, and to really get those first time home buyers in there.
Sure. So a lot of the homes that were built in I'd say the 70s and the 80s didn't have a garage, and then when they did add a garage, it was a single stall. But as families evolve and they add kids and spouses and 2 cars and 3 cars, there's challenges with parking, and so what we want to do is accommodate a wider driveway for those vehicles to keep those off the street, but also keep them in the driveway, keep them out of the sidewalk area as well, and rather than requiring them to jump through a bunch of hoops. This allows them to just expand that driveway a bit within a reasonable manner to accommodate 2 vehicles.
Yep, and this is, I think, one of the great things that we have with our Board of Adjustment, because we were seeing quite a few of these expansions of the driveways to go to 20 feet, to get 2 cars on there, going in front of our Board of Adjustment and getting approved. And so that's a great way then, well, if our citizen boards are approving all these, then why wouldn't we change the ordinance just to allow it? And as you indicated, not require all these hoops and people to go through. So
it's a no-brainer to allow it. It's a great thing for the community, and that it also opens up more accessible housing options for the community.
Absolutely. So. And then it looks like we're doing some stuff with some of our mobile home, manufactured home charts that we're trying to maybe make it a little bit more clear. I know we have some really good diagrams in Shape Places, but some of those diagrams maybe didn't actually correspond with the ordinance. So I know some of our planning and zoning specialists are really working on trying to update those and really get them to match what's currently written in the ordinance.
Yeah, there's a little hang up between the language and the diagrams, and accessory structures versus accessory structures for mobile homes, and we just want to clear up that language and ensuring that they're 10 feet away from each other, mobile home to mobile home, and then that accessory structure is at least 10 feet away from an adjacent mobile home, but can be as close as 4 feet to the existing mobile home.
Yep, and it's a great way to make it Shape Places more user-friendly so people can see pictures and really understand where these different structures need to be placed. A couple other ones that I think is a great thing that we've seen maybe a couple businesses utilize is looking to add some solar farm uses as part of the ordinance as we kind of move forward with some renewable, cleaner energy that we're looking to do.
Right. So within our utilities zoning designation, solar farms were not identified. Within that, recently we had Poet want to establish a solar farm out on their campus there, and we think it's a great idea to harness opportunities like that for alternative energy sources, and it's something that we want to allow. It's something that we want our community to allow, and so we've drafted a component to allow that within our UT2 utilities form.
So this next one is kind of more of a little bit of a cleanup, which we typically have to do with some of these. We find language in there that's maybe not written exactly, or in this case, the street or the road or highway may change names. And this is a good example where Veterans Parkway was previously known as South Dakota Highway 11, all the way around the city. A previous council with kind of an idea to honor some of our veterans in Sioux Falls to rename that highway to Veterans Parkway. However, that didn't get updated in the zoning ordinance, so now you're looking to come back and do that aspect of it.
Yep, just some nominal cleanup and updating with the zoning ordinance, and this is standard every year as things evolve.
Yeah, we definitely have to come back and do those. And I think this next one's another example of when we do certain things. This is to allow our director or our assistant director to maybe sign off on some stuff that's not typically what's required in a buffer yard, but maybe they have some minor changes that need to be made. Maybe it's a drainage easement, or maybe you're working with the neighbors and they don't want shrubs, they want all trees. And it seems like everywhere we do rezonings and buffer yards around the city, neighbors want something different. But it looks like this, with changing that, it should allow us a little more flexibility to be able to sign off on those. Maybe explain that a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the goal, is to offer more flexibility where it makes sense. There's not a standard one-size-fits-all for a lot of development, and where we think trees make sense, whether it's a neighborhood request or it just doesn't work with the topography. We don't want to force people to do 50 units of bushes and 50 units of trees. We want to be able to accommodate to their needs, but also think about the site a little bit and what makes the most sense.
Yep.
So that's a great addition.
Yeah, definitely, to be able to work with the developers and also with the neighbors to get kind of what they want in there and not have to do months-long public hearings and confusing different boards that they have to go to.
Yeah, all over a few shrubs.
Yep.
So.
And so I think this last one we're going to talk about now is really something that's maybe really reared its head with COVID, is all these restaurants were maybe shut down in the inside and everybody was going through drive-throughs essentially. Yep. We didn't have any mechanism in the ordinance that allowed us to count the drive-through queuing spaces, even though a lot of these restaurants have significant queuing spaces. And typically that's where people are utilizing the drive-through than more of stopping and going inside. So this is a great one, I think, that you're proposing to allow us to count some of those. Maybe talk a little bit about what we're looking to do with that aspect.
Well, yeah, sure. Due to COVID, I mean, we always want to be able to pivot and make changes that work for our community. And you're absolutely right. The drive-through business has gone to continually drive-through. Fewer and fewer restaurants are open on the inside, and before we were not counting their stacking or queuing spaces for the drive-through for their required parking counts, and we think it's appropriate to do so because they are a customer. That's their mean of going through that parking lot, so there's no need to be heavy-handed with excessive parking requirements when they're essentially built into the queuing and stacking.
And it's the same thing with banks too, would be included into that, but it's just a way for us as we continue to kind of look at the city from a planning perspective, and we see sometimes sea of parking lots that nobody's parking in, to maybe allow some other options to allow less parking. I mean, we don't need the same amount of parking as we used to have.
Absolutely, and it makes perfect sense with today's age of the evolution of restaurants.
So I think these are some great amendments, like I said, that we like to do every year, and specifically then these will, what's the timeline for these to go in front of the Planning Commission?
Sure, so over the next couple months, we'll be working with the Home Builders Association and the Multi-Housing Association to get their input and feedback on our zoning ordinances changes, and what we like to do is bring that forward to Planning Commission, and then to an informational with City Council, and bring that forward for adoption.
And I think that's a great way that we do the process, is we kind of find some of the ones that we think need to be changed. Some developers will say, well, why do you do it that way? And we think about it, and maybe we make changes there. But we also engage those, the home builders, like you said, the Multi-Housing Association, because if some of these things that we're proposing maybe are going to be too costly and kind of take that cost of a single family house or even an apartment rent up, that's maybe not the right fit or the right time to do some of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, anytime we're impacting our stakeholders, it's important to get their feedback, so that's our opportunity to do so.
Yeah, great. Well, thanks for stopping by and doing the special topic on the ordinance updates, and I'm assuming we'll have you here next year because we will do another round of ordinance updates. So
looking forward to it.
Great.
Thanks, Jason.
Yep. And thanks, Sioux Falls, for joining us for Planning Preview for the month of May. Just to reiterate, the meeting actually in May is on Thursday, May 5th. The City Council meeting was pushed to Wednesday just in case there was a runoff for the election. So the meeting will be on Thursday, May 5th at 6 o'clock at the Carnegie Town Hall. And as we always say, we'd love for you to come on any of the items that we talked about in the first half of the meeting. And also we have that general public input at the end of the meeting to come and discuss with the Planning Commission and Planning Department anything that you feel would need to be discussed. So thank you, Sioux Falls.